Guys, I'm Jdubs. I have won 3 majors in CSGO, and this is Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Talk to Thorin, and on this one I am joined by Golden, obviously quite well-known Swedish Counter-Strike player, in-game leader primarily, currently doesn't have a team, announced potentially he's coming back. We'll obviously get to that in the process of talking about all this jazz. So I want to actually go back in time a little bit, because I feel like if we're going to talk about your career, I have to go back to when you first came to Fnatic, because one thing a lot of people probably don't know, Golden, it's quite interesting actually. You know, now at the moment, actually there's a lot of hype for that We Play Academy League, where like you've seen players have come through. One of them played in NIP recently, the Phasey guy. You've had the players from Mouse Sports. I know people are hyping. Like basically people are quite in on the idea now of like, let's grow players and have this special thing. So a lot of people might not know this. You actually came from the Fnatic Academy team. You played in their academy there before you came into the main team. And obviously the guy who eventually became the coach of Fnatic, Samuelson, was there as well. So can you just give me some brief thoughts on that? Obviously this was a long time ago now. It was many years ago. And this was like an earlier attempt at like academy thing. But I know, you know, Fnatic North had one as well, which had a few players people remember. Can you give me some thoughts on, like, was it actually beneficial? Did you gain any experience from it? What did you think of that time period?
Yeah, so for me it was more like it was in Sweden we don't have a good way of getting like organizations and stuff like that. So I was playing in a lower tier team, and then I got the option to play with Fnatic Academy, and just the name made it like a way into the into the scene. So that was my point of view of it, and also the beginning of the academy, I was an IGLing. I wasn't set to be an IGL. Like I didn't IGL before. So Samuelson said he tried out other people, and he told me to just try it IGLing, and then that's how it stuck, and that's how I got my role.
And then is this connected, the fact that he came on and coached the main team, as to why you were the IGL of the main team as well? What happened with that situation? Why did they? Because obviously, if you're going to make the jump up, you might think you'd jump up to another, like, you know, slightly better Swedish team. Going to like Fnatic with all these legendary players, that's a big deal to get if you're not a storied IGL, right? You're gonna have to do a really good job.
Yeah, for the first time when I got the IGL role in the Fnatic main team, it was just there were lack of IGLs, and the second time. I think it was kind of it was weird because they were getting another player and that, but they got me instead. The players decided to get me and Samuelson as well. Like all of them knew me, and yeah, that's how it got about. Like it was they knew where they were getting, and this time I was different though.
One thing I want to talk about, like people can probably guess, I'm going to ask you about the time period when you were kicked out of Fnatic, but I have a different way to do it, because I actually, unlike other people, looked up all the details and the exact facts of it. So a lot of it gets misremembered when people tell that story again. So one thing people don't actually know, I'll give credit to the public, they just don't know this info, but I do from behind the scenes. I'm friends with Khan, a bunch of other people in Fnatic. I know that like it's not as simple as it looks from outside. From the outside, they think this happened, Golden. They think you were in Fnatic as the IGL. I notice the story's always told as though like they kicked you like the day after they won IEM kind of eats or something insane like that, which obviously would be ridiculous. But they always make it sound like you won the 2 big tournaments, WESG and kind of Katowice, and then they just kicked you for no reason, and then they got Exist. At the time, people thought Exist was washed. So this is considered like a terrible move, right? But actually, it didn't go like that at all. Here was the storyline. I was told that they already had actually made an agreement, or they were behind the scenes talking to Exist to join before any of these big tournaments were won. And it's just that, like, for some reason, that move hadn't happened yet. And sort of behind the scenes, that it was going to happen anyway. And they were like playing out these last tournaments, and then it just so happened you won a couple of them, which were huge. So obviously fans were like, you can't kick this guy. Can you give me some thoughts? Is that accurate? Does that sound in line with what you heard? Like, what did you think? Because from the outside it does look very shocking, you know, the way that situation went down.
So I'll just be like truthfully say everything. I usually haven't like talk about this in the public. So just before they got me, there's a story behind this. Just before they got me from the academy team, they wanted to play with Exist. Like they want to get Exist, right? So we were playing a lot of events. First event we bumped out in the groups. That was our first event, and then the rest of the events we came to semifinals or at least like quarterfinals. And then came Star Series, season 8, where we bombed out. We lost against Hailu. We lost with 0-3 in the groups. Yeah, and I think just at that point they agreed to change the IGL role, like change out me. And or just some time before that, but Exist was always on their mind.
Right.
So that was the seed behind like the things, like they wanted to get Exist no matter what, and they had to try it. I mean, it was good for all of us to actually separate.
Yeah, fair enough. Obviously, we'll get to that part of the story. And what I want to ask is this, though. Like, when you do a move like that, if you think about the sports angle, like in sports, obviously, there are literally subs. If you don't play well, someone else comes and replaces you in football, for example. Right? People could argue, like, that's just part of being a professional. Maybe in theory could motivate someone. I mean, people might argue, if you look recently in CS, teams like Vitality looked like they actually played better when people knew they were going to be kicked from the team because they kind of just probably had no pressure, you know. Did it affect you? Because I can imagine, like I say, this isn't just any team. If I'm being made the in-game leader of Fnatic, right, that's already pressure. If I also know that they secretly want Exist, who's a really legendary player and already super established, and basically it might feel to me like if I fuck up once, they're just going to get that guy. Like, what was the actual atmosphere for you like, knowing that this was going on in the background?
Sorry, I wasn't clear. I didn't know they were getting Exist.
Oh, right. Okay. When did you find out?
I knew the same day I was flying to... I was waiting for my visa, which I had problem with, to China. That was the same night I saw the HLTV article.
Right. So you only found out then very shortly, a couple of months before you were kicked, basically, right?
No.
So when did you find out relative to when you were kicked? A couple of tournaments before something?
No, the same day we were traveling to China at WSG. So that was after Katowice.
Oh, right. That was the event after. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So I knew it. I knew it from the HLT article. There was a report. So I wasn't told anything, but like concrete, which was a lot of, like, that was the point where I got a lot disappointed because I've never lied to my teammates, and I would always tell the truth, or I didn't think they meant it. Like, this is also the thing. They didn't mean it to be that way, obviously. So I can't blame them, and I have no grudge against them for that. But it's also like it sucks a lot to see it like that.
Right, the other thing that's interesting is, like I said, people make it sound like they just kicked you right after you won these two massive events. You were obviously kicked like a few tournaments after that, when obviously the team also didn't win the other events and all this, that jazz. But my question is this: winning those two big events, like, look, when I say big, let's be real, the one in China, WSG, is only big because of the money, because that's like the main reason. It was like a spectacle, you know. Obviously the teams there aren't as good as any of the other events. So realistically, let's just talk about Katowice. Right, winning Katowice is a massive deal. That's still, it's not a major, but it's considered still like one of the biggest tournaments. It's not a major. The team you beat was one you were supposed to lose to. It was FaZe Clan in a best of 5, all this jazz. Right? If someone wins a tournament like that, in fact, if you add in the WSG in terms of money, you obviously won a lot of money in a short amount of time. Most people would say that should sort of buy you some time to do your job. Like, you should maybe get 6 months, a year. Then after that, they can see, you know, did you do a good job? Did you do a bad job? Did you think it was fair that they chose Exist over you? I mean, you said it there, like, you know, for whatever other reasons, maybe it needed to happen. But do you think that was actually a fair move by Fnatic and the players after the success you had?
So we kind of like talked about this after the day I found about the article, right? And we went to WSG. I still went. I wasn't very happy at that time, but after we won the event, we talked, and they told me to come down, and I was already preparing to get out of the team. Like, just wanted to get over with WSG. We talked, and they told me that they want to continue playing with me. So their plans with Exist, they canceled them out. And then we came to those few tournaments. We played like semi-final and one quarter-final, I think. And that's when Lekro had to go. And then I stayed for a month where I changed roles, and then I was kicked as well.
Let's talk about that then, because here's the thing. You might not know this, but on By the Numbers, the show I do with Richard, that's actually that story of you becoming the entry fragger and then getting kicked is actually an infamous story. Because basically, we always make fun of the fact that it's like they were trying to just fuck you over, mate. Because in that scenario, either you stay near the in-game leader, which is the job you do, or you should just leave and be in-game leader elsewhere. Being like, oh, I'll be an entry fragger, and also the idea you're going to like replace Lekro. Like Lekro has pretty good fucking aim, mate. Like in that scenario, like, did you agree with that move? Like, was it worth it to just try and stay in Fnatic? It sounds like that role wouldn't have suited you, right?
Actually, I was looking forward to it because I couldn't understand myself as I can understand myself today. Obviously, I think I grinded my ass off to be an entry fragger or to have that information for my teammates and just for them to do their role. I think I did my role the best I could do it at that time because I didn't have a lot of time, and I never played it at that extent.
When they kicked you out of this team, though, for me, it did imply, and they also sort of said something like this, I noticed when they did the news post, they sort of made it sound like they weren't sure about your experience, or basically it sounded like they didn't really believe in you as a leader, right? Despite that, look at the success you had. You won these massive tournaments, and obviously later, yes, it's over a year later, but you did come back to Fnatic and have all the success. Did they misread you? You yourself said you hadn't done the role very long. Were you more raw back then? How would you have evaluated? Did you do a good job the first time at Fnatic, do you think?
I was a rookie the first year with them. Yes, I didn't have that experience, but you already know what you're getting. Kind of like, I didn't play in any big tournaments when I was in the academy team. And the players were different. They had a lot of more ego. They wanted to... Their environment and the culture in the team is different. Like, it's so hard for a rookie to succeed in that team, and especially in IGL. That's how I thought of it after that period was done. So I would say that I could have done better, obviously, but I also could have been taught more, or learn in the experience more and given more time with my role as an IGL the first time.
Since you had so many really veteran players, like you obviously had the core of flusha, JW, Crims, like these are players who played for years and years and won all the championships, etc. And I will say, if you look at their histories, they don't look like they're the sort of players who want like to be micromanaged by the in-game leader. Their in-game leaders, they've had a pretty loose guys who kind of like know, these know how to play. What was your approach to using these players the first time you're in Fnatic? Like, did they want you to kind of just let them do whatever they wanted? How much control did you get to have?
I had a lot of control, but they could also do what they wanted as players. I didn't stop them for anything like that. I knew that stopping what they wanted, like their intuition, was not the key for these guys to succeed, or us. So I just let it happen.
After this, when you went to Cloud9, obviously you and flusha were in Cloud9 at the same time period, although to be fair, everyone was in and out of the lineup constantly. We all know that story, right? But what I wanted to know was this. I heard some people say that in that team, flusha was the IGL, or he was the one caller. When you were both in the team at the same time, were you the in-game leader of Cloud9? How did that work?
Yes, yes, I was the in-game leader. There was a 3-month time period where we played actually together, or 2 months. Then I got a heart problem. Then I had to go away, and then when I came back, flusha had to go for like his circumstances.
Yes.
So there was no like good time for us to spend in the team. To be frank.
One thing I want to ask about is, since you said in the academy team, you actually, it wasn't even your idea to be an in-game leader, it was just suggested and they tried out and it worked and you came to Fnatic, right? If people have noticed in CSGO, a lot of people were players have tried being like an in-game leader for like 3 months and then they give it up. And a lot of times when they give it up, they never do it again. Like I always say, it's a role where I think if you commit to that role, you have to commit. You have to sort of be like, this is my new role. It's basically what I do from now on. So every day it's just demos and watching the other. It's like a full-time job to do this job. It's not just like playing a spot in the game, So had you actually committed? Did you decide? When did you decide, like, I'm just an in-game leader from now on? When did you actually make that decision, do you think?
that was one of the best questions I've had because no one have asked me this. So I've for me who has never IGL, never played with an IGL, like everything that an IGL is, I was not. So in the academy, that meant for me is to learn the role from from 0 to like 50% or 100%, however an IGL can be, how good an IGL can be, and that was including demos, like interviews with like some IGLs explaining some stuff, and I was watching a lot of VODs. I even watched NaVi's like VODs with when they were speaking at the major in Russian.
Right. Okay.
So it was at that point like I was trying to gather a lot of information of like how they call and what they call for, and just try to measure up and do it my style. And my style, obviously, I'll get to that later when I come back to Fnatic. But yeah, so I had to learn from the scratch. I had no one to help me.
Right, when you were in this Cloud9 team, as we discussed, you pointed out there, you weren't actually in the team that long in terms of having like the proper lineup because it was a mixture of like the team was still being put together, pieces were being added, but then also you, Flusher, someone else I think as well also had like health issues and reasons they had to stay out the team, etc. Like on paper, I've always said that team to me was an interesting project. So if you actually look at the names, they're all actually that's like a pretty good. Like if you'd have ever had the real lineup with Kioshima and Flusher, if everyone could all have been at the automatic, if every one of these players could all be at the same time and get like 6 full months, maybe there was something to this project. Like it had some potential, but obviously it was something of a cursed project. As you say, there were like health reasons that meant it never had a real line. Well, how do you look back on that time period? I know the people in Cloud9, like the Cloud9 like order people, they think it was like a waste of time basically because they never sort of ever properly got going. You know, how do you look back on that time period? Was it a waste of time?
Not for me. No, I don't think it was waste of time as individuals. We still like had good. It was fun when we were together outside the game. I got to learn so much more about like how to operate, and I got more help, with Valiance about some stuff of like how I should approach some stuff with other people, and that helped me a lot. And as well as when I was sick for 6 months with the heart problem, I was reading books and watching videos of how to be a better leader and how to lead. So for that like 6 months, I was just trying to make myself better when I come back, because Cloud9 had decided to wait for me, which was like I could. There's no way I sit there and being lazy or like I just want to do something for them as well. But I wasn't able to by my doctors. I wasn't able to play or travel for that period of time just to recover.
Since you mentioned Valiance, who obviously at one point in time there was like working in like data science, and eventually later he became the coach, like sort of towards the end of your time period, though, right? What was his role? What was he doing? Like when he was saying that, like he helped you with some things. What would his interaction with you be?
Well, I would like he will like tell me to. We would talk about how people like think about some stuff, and we had so many problems in the team that like I needed someone to talk to, and we approached it in a very logical, good manner of how to set up so that we can succeed, right? And the way to that process was very valuable for me because we didn't think like that a lot in Sweden, or yeah. So how to approach social things was good. Like I learned that how to think logically with them, Valence, and also like Automatic is one of the best players I've played with. So those two people were very helpful for me in a lot of ways, from in-game stuff as well. Like we could set up other people. Like Automatic knew how to succeed. Like he knew how he could succeed, right? And a lot of players don't have that. Like they don't know how he can be better if we help him. So he knew the help he needed, and on honesty, like we gave, like it was like 3 or 4 months, and he was already one of the best oppers, and that was one of his new role in the team. So he just picked that up one day, and then we said, yeah, let's go. You op now, and then he practiced his ass off, and then he was one of the better oppers out there, in my opinion.
This is a question for pure curiosity, because I know people on the outside are interested. I've heard stories behind the scenes. This is the question. It goes at its golden. You played with the infamous Kioshima, and bizarrely in his career, even though if you ever watched the game, he was usually actually a pretty good player. He kept having these scenarios in his career where for some reason he would get kicked out of teams or people didn't want to play with him, right? Similarly, when he left this team, I can't remember who it was. Someone basically told me in Cloud9, like, they also sort of just didn't want to play with him for some reason. Do you have any explanation you can give to people at all as to what did Kioshima have any problems with you and Cloud9? Do you have any sense of why people just don't like him for some reason? Doesn't seem to be about his game.
I don't like to shit talk.
Yeah, sure. Just wonder what you think.
Yes, we did have problems with him.
Okay.
I personally also, while I was sitting out a lot of matches or for a long period of time, when I came back, I like it was very hard to play with him for me, so I didn't want to either.
Yeah, fair enough. Again, we don't have to trash talk him. Basically, I'll just tell you, I've just heard he just had motivation issues. Basically, he was a hard guy to sort of get along with that sense, so it doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yeah, and also like if I was the only person, I would let it slide, but I wasn't the only one.
Yes. Okay, fair enough. Right, when this Cloud9 period came to an end, give me some thoughts on that, because again, like I said about when I alluded to the Cloud9 people, they tried this project for quite a long time, and it was quite a lot of players at the end, and in fact, even when they ended this one, they sort of kept doing it again, but then with Jdubs, instead they did like a different version of an international team where it's all like weird pieces put together, right? How did it come about that you were able to leave the team? Because if people remember, technically you were still like under contract to them when you were in Fnatic or something weird, and you were like on loan, and then you played with Nip in the one major of something. So what happened? How did it come that you left Cloud9, but then you weren't essentially sold or released? Like, what was happening in this time period? Did they still want you to play? Did you not want to play? What was going on?
Cloud9 decided to change, like, change 4 players and keep Automatic, and then Jdubs was the one who was gonna lead, and didn't want to leave Cloud9 to be honest. I thought like, alright, we need to like redo the structure of everything. We need to rethink everything that we have done in the past 4 months or 5 months, and let's do it another way this time. That was my initial thoughts. Like when we kept playing bad or bumming out of tournaments. Yeah. And yeah, that's it. Like I wanted to play there, but they decided they wanna play with different players, or Cloud9 wanted different players. Like they want to redo everything, but just keep it Automatic. So for them it was also, this team was cursed, so they didn't want to give more time into it.
Right, when you went and played the one tournament, was the major though, with an IP, was it ever actually like on the table, maybe you join an IP, or was that just a straight stand-in?
Oh, so this is I think they asked me 1 month or a month and a half before, if I wanted to join them. I think I'm not sure 100% on the details, but
okay.
They asked me if I was interested, not to play the major though, just to play with them. And I said I didn't want to leave Cloud9 because I feel obligated to make this team succeed, because even though we were in the shits, NAP was still in a better place than we were. But I turned them down. I said, no, like I want to write this storm out. Like I want to play and just find ourselves with Cloud9. And I that for me it meant to move back to Sweden as well. Which would make maybe things easier, but I don't think so. But at the major, I thought if I did a good job, I would be IGLing for them. But it was more. It was very different of how we practiced and all that, and I was very frustrated at that time. I wasn't the IGL either.
Yes. When you came back to Fnatic, and like I said, you initially came on this like trial period. It's just that like if people know the results, this was the period when you like won stuff and we were in all the finals. So understandably, they made it a permanent thing. Does that imply in some way, Golden? Because from the outside, it does look like when they kicked you the first time, they tried you temporarily because their coach or whatever was like, try this guy from the academy team, and then they were like, oh wait, well we can get Exist, and then they were like, oh shit, we won a couple of tournaments. What? Give the other guy like a few more tournaments. Then you had a few more. They were like, right, kick him now, get Exist. So if they did that right, and at the time, like they were implying like, he's not experienced enough to play with us because they're all the super veterans. Does this mean they sort of had to admit that they were wrong when you came back to the team? Was them bringing you back in the team sort of implying like maybe we were too hasty, maybe there's more to this? What would you say? Like, obviously you and Flusher together were both coming back as well. What would you explain about rejoining Fnatic? How was it?
To be honest, I had that thought in my mind. Maybe it was better if you guys kept me. I couldn't actually like say it, or I just had that thought in my mind. But if you look at what happened, and then is that when we were apart, that's when we grew also.
Sure.
So that was a good thing for all of us, for Flusha, for me, and for like Trims and JW. And we grew more as human beings as well, not in game, more like socially, and we were more understanding towards each other, and that was a big thing. So when we came back, can I go into like how?
Give us some thoughts.
So when me and Flusha came back, I was a different player, like a different IGL, different leader than I was before. This time I was coming back with, I was so much more determined, and I was confident in what I believed, right? The first time was like, I'm a rookie, I have to listen to these guys, and so on. Now I had all the, I think I could say I had the experience now, and I had the determination that it is my vision that we're going to play after, and this is how I wanted to play. So everything from that, and how I like controlled the pace of the game, that was not the first time. It wasn't there, but also the first time I wasn't told to 100%, or like I wasn't helped enough for a rookie to manage that, and I didn't know that I could be a better leader as well at that time when I was with them, the first time. So all those aspects coming in, and we had Brollan as well, which he was fired up when me and Flusha came back. He was playing to his potential and showing what a great player he can be, right? And it was missing from that kid for a long time, in my opinion. So he was activated. We were all like playing. We weren't playing in our primes. I wouldn't say that. We were just playing very good, and we were playing like we were playing so natural that it was easy for everyone to be able to keep up.
Normally, when someone joins a team, especially as the in-game leader, they would normally actually ask for time. Like, give me like 3 or 4 months. Like, I've got to set the system up, blah, blah. You obviously just immediately won DreamHack Malmo. That was like the first event with the team. Then you were in the finals of the other tournaments. If people don't know this stretch, during the LAN period, you had like 5 LANs. You were always top 4 and basically in the finals of most of them. So yeah. This sounds like in line with what you're saying. It's almost like you walked in the door and there was just chemistry.
Yeah. So just before that is that we had a boot camp in London, and I think I prepared so much for that boot camp and I've never had the guys take that information so fast and apply it to the game. That was so good for us. Like, it was insane that how much we did on that bootcamp and how much it helped us. So that bootcamp was the best we ever had, and then like from that, it was an easy stroll where you say is like when we were playing on LAN, everything was clicking. We were making decisions based upon like how we believe the game should be played, not like we were not taking risk that was unnecessary all the time. We're making calculated risks, and I was calling also, like I would say, one of my best callings ever.
Right, winning that event is obviously a big deal. Like DreamHack Masters was one, if people don't know, they had all the best teams were in attendance at this competition. In fact, the top 4 is basically the best teams in the world at the time. Right, to win a competition like this, you'd already won the Katowice tournament a year earlier. Like, what do you think, as an in-game leader, is there something different it takes to win big tournaments, to beat the best teams in the world? Is there something extra you need, do you think?
No, I don't like. If you overthink it, that's when it goes wrong. But obviously, you need to tweak some stuff. But also, to be fair to the other teams, they don't know what to expect from us, and they don't know what we had in the arsenal. And I will also say that I improvise a lot of stuff on the spot, and I wouldn't be able perhaps to improvise stuff with other players. But
right.
with this team, it was much easier for me to improvise, and they could understand what I was getting to a lot faster, and they just implied it.
Yeah, one of the things, if people remember the success period of this team when it came along in late 2019, early 2024, went online, was people saw like the revival of players like JW and Flusher doing all the old things we used to see them do, the crazy moves, win the clutches, JW do like a ridiculous timing push on someone. It sounds like you understood the players, you were using this as like a tool, right? It's something you can use against people, because I think what we saw from the online period, in my opinion, was you saw a lot of teams play like that when it's online, but online they don't do that if it's like the semi-final of a massive tournament, right? If they're on stage, a lot of these players don't try those moves. So it must be really good as an IGL if you've got the people that can do that, actually, and they want to, and that's their style.
Yeah, like you can see that in the online period. You just mentioned everyone was playing like us, and it was so hard to like counter them. They did what we did to them, but on LAN, and they were doing it at home. Was very rough for us, because it was a problem for like 6 months. Like, how do can we stop thinking about what they're doing and think about us now? Like, we had a lot of meetings, and that was an issue for us in our heads, where we all the time we were like complaining and whining about it. But yeah, and also when you give a lot of space to players, in terms, so you can say I've said no to a lot of stuff, but I'll also let a lot of stuff go, is because when a player plays by their intuition and what they want to do willingly, is so much better than controlling them into a winning round all the time. But I would say I gave that space, but I also gave that space in the right time. Like, sometimes I didn't want some stuff to happen because we weren't there in the match, in the flow. We were not controlling anything. So for us to take more risk and try to win out the round by like a high risk, then it's not worth it. We're just gonna spiral down in the same thing again, and just it will go worse for us. So understanding when we can use ourselves better was also one of the things. Yeah, and also this is something I got from Valiance as well. So sometimes I've encountered players that are stubborn to play in a certain way or learn new stuff. So you can explain it to them in a way of this is how you can explain them to, like, if you talk to them and explain to them, and then they come up to the answer that you want.
Right, you get them to figure it out. Yeah.
You get them to figure out, and then they will do it much better than you forcing it, right?
Yes.
So that was one of the process, which also helped me like get through to players.
Right, even though people love to do it where they like so many top 2s and top 4s, it was so amazing. Should you have won some of these other tournaments? Should Fnatic have won more titles than just one in this period?
Yes. Oh yeah. We like after I think we lost against EG. We were leading 9-3 or something on the first map, and we lost that. I was devastated. Like I couldn't believe we lost that final as well. But yeah, we should have won more finals. Sadly, I was still like hoping for the future that we would win in the finals, because we didn't have a problem get to the finals. Our problems were in the finals.
Yes.
So that was a different issue that I've never encountered. We used to make jokes like the first final in Katowice, I think it was. Someone said something. I was like, "Hey guys, calm down. This is my first final." Like they were joking about something. I don't remember what it was, and I could just like see it because these guys had played in so many finals, right? They had so much experience. This is my first time in Fnatic in Katowice, and it was for me just like, hey guys, calm down. This is my first final, and you can see their vibe was just a lot different than mine.
One of the downsides, unfortunately, when you win with legendary players like this, and obviously those three have won a whole bunch of majors and other things in the past, is when they win, and especially because some of them have such unique playing styles, a lot of fans are just going to look at what they did on the screen and go, wow, it was Flusher doing a clutch that won this game, or it was JW doing that, or Crim's just fragged out, or whatever. So I don't know, actually, if you ever got your credit. Like, I don't know if people, do you feel as though people actually thought you were one of the best in-game leaders? I mean, your team was right on top. Do you think you got your credit?
The second time I got back, or the first time?
Second time round.
No, I like it is. So this is the thing is that as long as my team believes in me, I'm okay with what the public says. But if my teammates think that they're doing my job, then I will like don't give me credit. Then I feel I'm a more of a like doing it. I like giving stuff to people, or being I'm a giver, not a taker. So it's more of I get the recognition for that, and just appreciate the work I do for them, and that is important for me. That was most important. Yeah. Sorry.
So obviously people know the online period didn't go well, but one thing I wanted to ask was this. If people remember the timing of when we all went online and we had to go into this different world of like how events have been since then, the actual next major wasn't supposed to be that far away, and you guys were one of the best teams. You were always in the semis, the final. Like, one of the things I always thought was sad was you never actually got to see what could have happened at that major. That would have been basically your best chance to win one, right?
Yeah. No, we were on fire. Like, we were hoping to win that, of course, but yeah, like we were looking so good. I can't explain the feeling, but it was it was one of the best CS we've ever played. And I've talked with Flush a lot, like because we used to share rooms, events, and I used to ask him like, are we playing better than when when you guys were winning a lot, or is this like this is a better system, or we playing more consistent? Because we weren't playing consistent the first time I got back. Like we weren't. The players didn't think of consistency as were doing now. Like that was also one of the things we had to explain. Like everything we do has to be based on the risk we take. We cannot take risks that are meaningless. And I used to ask them like a lot of these questions, and asked them if like the CS is better now. So I got a lot of insight of like how I can improve the team as well, because Flusha is still one of the smartest players I've played with, and he is very smart. And why not use your teammate who has all that knowledge?
Right, the player I want to ask about, because aside from what happened to you, I think the other person that was most noticeable has to be JW, because at one point in time online, I remember Flashpoint 2 was actually doing pretty well. Looked like he'd adapted, and he was even back on the AWP, and everything was looking good. But if people remember the way his career so far sort of ended, it was kind of a bit sad. What do you think happened to JW? Because some people would have said, if you think of all the Fnatic players, he should do awesome online. That is sort of how he plays Counter-Strike. Like, what do you think happened to him?
Like in the last period of online period.
Yeah. What do you think went wrong?
So many things went like not in our way. JW had to change role, and he had to, like, when he was playing up, we kind of wanted him to play in how a modernized opper would play, and that like took a toll on the team, because then Jackinio had to play the rifle, and Jackinio surprisingly needed a lot of attention as well. So it was more of JW just couldn't, I wouldn't say that. JW played, he practiced all those things we told him at the best he could. And when he did that, like when he was like feeling he was playing a lot better, but we still had an issue that Jackinio had also need to be adapted to, but he didn't do it as quickly as JW. So now we gave the AWP role to JW, to Jackinio, and JW had to go back to or go to rifle role, which put it was a hard task, because everyone had to change roles in the team. And now everyone's changing so much, we couldn't find our groove, or JW couldn't find his groove either. But I have, like, JW was doing, yeah, he did his best. I mean, it is sad that how it ended, but I still believe him as he will come back as a player.
Right. What's weird is when the team had all this problem online, you had the one tournament which looked good, which was the CS Summit, where you actually had that run where it was looking pretty decent, and like things came together just before the end. Right. Tell me this, right? When you think of the whole online period, do you remember it as being really bad and all the bad results, etc.? People know at the end there was a very weird set of circumstances with how you removed, where like people claimed that they hadn't seen you online for 1 month or something, and then one day it was just announced like Golden's removed or benched or whatever. Like, give me some thoughts. How did it end? How did it end in Fnatic? What was it like from your perspective?
So 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks after our last tournament, I got a call, and I was told that they wanted to make changes, and they want to make a big change and change me out. I didn't take it lightly at that day. I was like in a bit of shock, because I was telling the people that removed me that these are the problems we have in the team, and we need to fix them, right? And the LAN was coming back as well. And I was a bit I was not agreeing with the decision, but I was respecting it, because I had the timing of the decision of making a change just before LANs, and we waited one and a half year.
Yes.
With this lineup, or like 4 of them, why make a change now? Like, why not wait until one LAN tournament and see how that goes, and then we can proceed after that, and then no.
Yeah, that's one thing I always wondered about, because people know 2 of the teams that fell off when it came to online was Mouse Sports and Fnatic, who were 2 of the best LAN teams. But obviously, by now, listen, Carrigan was already gone to FaZe by then. But in your case, I always thought the same thing. If you look at when they kicked you, it was right before Cologne came along. And if people remember, the storyline of Cologne, basically, aside from NaVi winning, etc., was that like Carrigan and Glaive showed that if you're actually like a world-class IGL, you can just beat all these online teams if you're on LAN. Like, it is kind of like the old days we go back. So, yeah, it must have felt like, come on, give me like one crack at it. Give me one LAN, and then I'll see, let me live or die on that, right?
I never said that to them, by the way. I just said, this is my thoughts about it. But yeah, I would say that this team works best as on LAN. All the players I had, except maybe Jackinho. I'm unsure about him, but yeah.
Right. If someone asks, then what has Golden been doing since then? How do you explain what you've been doing now? Why is now the moment to do a comeback?
I've been just trying to get my what I say. Like I've been reflecting a lot. Like obviously, this bad period with Fnatic has not been easy on my mental health either. But yeah, I've been watching a lot of demos, reflecting over myself, like how can I be a better person, better IGL, better leader, and what should I do different for next time? And I've planned out my system for the next team, whatever that is. Yeah, and also been coaching the academy guys because I felt like it was a good opportunity to be into meta and also learning how to articulate myself better in English, because that was one of the problems I had in Cloud9. I couldn't articulate myself that well in the game. And now, yeah, and now I've been just waiting for that opportunity to come back. So I've just been planning my way back to the game, I would say.
A lot of the famous Swedish in-game leaders, funnily enough, are in the vein of Pronax, can't say. They're people who they're thought of as like, they just kind of mid-round call, usually they have to frag themselves, and the team plays like Swedish styles, play defaults, and people, you just trust that the players are all geniuses and they know what to do, right? What would you say is your style? Because it sounds like from the times I've talked to you, especially with some of the experiences you've had in Cloud9 and going through this in-game leader change, that you're someone who's tried to sort of almost like look at it, like, kind of like people do in sports science, where there's a different approach to like how a leader thinks and how you structure things. What would you say is your approach? How do you like to have a team set up, and what's your style of leadership, would you say, Golden?
My style of leadership is more what are you good on, and then how can I use that, and then I take those small pieces and just like make a round out of it, that where I put that person to succeed the best he can succeed, and then like that's for a structural round, right? Which like calling out in a structure round is very easy, but how I think of the mid round call is more like come to a point where you can make that call, mid round call. Don't make it too early.
Right.
So I based upon what my teammates tell me for information and what information I have and how they could react to something. That's how I like call after, based upon logic, and that's one of the things that I would say Swedish player had a problem, because they were taking too much intuition calls too much, or the players were making too much intuition moves as plays, and that hurts a lot, because you can't just not make intuition because you're tilted or based on emotions. And yeah, so I structured it in my head where there has to be 2 steps, and then I make the call, and mid-round call. And I had one more thing in my mind. It's I can't.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you if it comes up again.
Yeah, no problem. One thing I want to ask is, it sounds also like during this experience, and especially from the first time of Fnatic to the second time, sounds like something else you learned was the leadership part of the in-game leader. Like I always say, the term in-game leader, we just use that as the term, obviously. Yeah. Some people aren't really leaders, though. They're just tacticians, aren't they? They're just the guy who calls the strat. Like sometimes they're not the guy who has like the force of presence, you might say in English, or they don't have tools like you're talking about of how do I explain something to a guy who doesn't agree, or maybe in the case of Fnatic, I imagine imagine people like you said about people doing moves that were too risky. They probably had a different philosophy on the game than you wanted to implement. Would you say that's something that's changed as well? Your ability to actually be a leader?
Yeah, that was a good way of explaining it. Yes, I think leadership is the key, because every day you are kind of a teacher, like in practice, because you prepare so much for the briefing just before the practice. So you kind of need to way of leading a classroom, or like to explain stuff good for them. You can just not say, this is what NaVi did, we're just gonna do the same. But no, you gotta understand why they were doing it and why we gonna do it this way, because you cannot just copy everything. It might not suit your players or your team. So those are one of the things, like explaining or when you have leadership as well, they will not hesitate to make that whatever you call, they will do it. When you are determined and just like you know what's good, and if that decision is bad, then we can talk about it later. Don't like cancel my call if you don't have 100% information, or you think something is, or yeah, you have the information for 100% that this is not the right call, because you might know there's 2 players there and you forgot to call them out, and how am I supposed to know that if you know it, like if you don't tell me, right? So those kind of stuff comes easy after a while, I would say.
Right, obvious. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it just becomes natural. If you think of it being a good leader, and if you think about it every day, and you just progress and learn new things and how to be that, it just comes off easy.
Right, obviously at the moment there barely are any Swedish teams, like Fnatic themselves now speaking English, etc. And people do know, though, first of all, from this interview, they can see you speak fluent English. And then secondly, you talked quite actually positively about your time at Cloud9, even though the results weren't so great. So even though it's an obvious question, I'll ask it just so we can make people explicitly clear. You're also up for joining a team that's an international team and speaks in English and has different cultures, etc., right?
Yeah, like I have no problem moving to NA. I have no problem with that. And I've done my reflecting. I've seen my mistakes in the past, like this past year, and I'm hard on myself and say I wasn't perfect. What I could have been for the team, in regards of how much we failed. So yeah, but this is also how we learn stuff from our mistakes.
Does the return of lands, and especially having the major and all these big tournaments, has that been part of the factor that's made you get revitalized to come back to Counter-Strike?
Yeah, for sure. Like coming back into LAN and feeling comfortable, like how I call sometimes on LAN is the perfect way of calling. It's the most complete, not perfect, sorry. It's the most complete play style of calling on LAN, because online when people play the way they're playing right now, when they play online, it's so disruptive, and the players I had, like we couldn't actually play it into that style where we could just do that, or like entry. Like we had a problem where we had to entry on a site and the pathing was so wrong, or scaling, that we never had that issue on LAN, but online we had that. And we were thinking everything needs to be perfect. But yeah, so just explaining that a little more, that how much we were thinking of the online period, but actually in reality, you need to think about CS as being easy, otherwise it's going to be hard.
Since obviously we don't know where you're going to go yet or what team you might get an offer from, and I thought what I'd do is I'd ask you this question. Since at the moment the number one team obviously is NaVi, they win every tournament, they won the major without dropping a map. The thing with their team that's really weird, Golden, is because they have Simple, and if we go back even a year ago, he was one of those players who used to have to like hard carry every game, and it's like even if he does amazingly, they might lose the game. I don't think people have fully like updated their mind on NaVi, because now obviously they have way more help for him. Like if you look in the rankings of the players, players for every tournament. Usually it's like 2 or 3 people who aren't even simple, are top 5, top 10 in the rankings of the tournament. So they're getting a lot of firepower. So now I feel like the question instead has become, right, they've got the help for simple, but the question now is, people wonder, is it just fragging? Is that all they're doing? Do they actually have like proper a tactical system? Do they look like they have in-depth aspects? So I want to get your take on it. So as an outsider, what do you think of the way NaVi plays Counter-Strike?
I think they play in a consistent way where they're taking decisions based upon what they see as well. I think Simple is playing around his teammates so best he can, and he's controlling a lot of small stuff. Like, he's not controlling all the tactical stuff, but he's controlling where the players are positioning themselves and how can they, like on Nuke for example, like their rotations are almost like, there's no word in CS perfect because you can never be perfect, but they're almost perfect. Like, they're always there's a gap perhaps on Nuke on 5 seconds, but they know about it, but there's always someone covering that gap, which makes me think that they've talked about a lot of these stuff, and Simple is knowing where he needs to be at that moment. Like when we played against Simple, like, yes, it is a lot of fragging, but there is also a lot of, it's based upon information and a decision that was made out of something, not just thin air. So it is more of them, or specifically Simple. It was so hard to play against them because it felt like he already knew what we were gonna do. And when you have one of the, like, a player like that, he kinda can control the game. And I think Blade is doing a lot of the tactical stuff as well. I think it's a mesh. When you are on a roll, then everything is going good for you when you have the momentum. And when you don't have the momentum, you have to find the momentum. And when they have to find the momentum, that's when they go for the execute rounds or the structured rounds to make it easier for themselves to come back into the match.
Right, and then I had one player-related question, which is about your old teammate Brollan. So under you, he was obviously still a very young player, but he became, literally based on the rankings, like one of the best players in the world. He got in the top 20 on HLTV, etc. This is when you guys were winning tournaments and you were one of the better teams. Right, I noticed in this new Fnatic, when they brought in the British players, and Alex and Mezzy and them, right, I noticed at the beginning, actually, Brollan looked a little bit lost. Like, he looked like maybe his role had been swapped or something, or he wasn't putting up the numbers. You normally expect him to have star player numbers. Right, how would you explain this player? Because I notice with young players, it's not always like, people take it for granted that every young player is like some Simple type guy who just knows what he wants to do and just goes and does it. Some players, they don't know what their identity is or what their role in the team is. Sometimes they're better when someone puts them in a spot. How would you say Brollan should be used? When's he at his best? What do you think his strengths are?
At his best is that he gets to do some crazy stuff now and then, and no one is stopping him to do them, because Brollan is not like, he watches demos on the opponents like, if he's gonna play someone who watches demos on that position, and he he watches so many demos, it's insane, and he makes a plan in his head and he plays it out, and he tries it in practice as well, which is even better. Like, that means he prepares like several days before that match, if he knows the match. So I would say just let him be free, because he will make good decisions by himself. And for his time, why it went bad for him, like after the changes with the new system now and so on, he's a good friend of mine, but yeah, so it is. I think he was put in, like, from seeing from the outside, he was put in the wrong positions, and he was not given the freedom or the confidence that he needed. Because I remember on LAN, when me and Flusha came back, he was like, this was not the player I was watching before, and like, in my head, at least what I know, I helped him try to be more confident. It's like, there was one round on Overpass, I still remember it, is that he got like 3 or 4 eco kills, and I then I told everyone else to not hunt and let Brollan get the confidence and just go kill him. And he went on kill him. Then that match he owned. Like he got that little spark or confidence, and then just let him be. And then he would do whatever I told him to do in the game. Like just, hey, Brollan, come trade me here, or Brollan, go entry here with me. And well, when he just get those calls or confidence, someone is believing in him, he succeeds. He's just like a normal person, because a lot of people see players like gods, or like they can do everything, but in reality we're just humans, and we need that those small stuff to be connecting to what we want to do. And a lot of times we miss out on that when we watch the game.
Sure. Right, okay, at the end of this interview, do you have any final words, or is anyone you want to thank or say hello to?
I just want to say thank you for this interview. It was very much appreciated as well. And to the people that follows me, thank you for supporting, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back soon.
Yeah, tack så mycket.
Tack så mycket.
This video was kindly supported by Iskander, Lager15, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Travis Goff, Zack Schmidt, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chronic Alcoholism, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and of course, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want to ask me a question? Maybe you want to know who the guests are for my upcoming content, or you'd like to take part in one of those long donated discussions. Well, put your money where your mouth is at the Patreon link in the description box below and join the Scrilluminati today.